This is Filmmaking for Noobs. I'm Kyle Lawrence, and today we're talking about blood, gore, and special effects makeup, including prosthetics.
Hey, can I just like dip out, leave or something?
Yeah, you can just exit frame, yeah. This is part one of the Filmmaking for Noobs two-part Halloween special. Sometimes in your films, you may have a need for special effects makeup, blood, cuts, bruises, scars, even sometimes nasty gut-wrenching gore. I'm going to show you how to achieve some of those effects with a relatively low budget. Let's start with blood. How can you achieve blood with a realistic look for your films? There are two quick and dirty ways that you can cheaply get some blood. The first and cheapest way is by simply mixing some dark corn syrup with red and a little bit of blue food coloring, mixing the colors together until you get the right shade that you're looking for. The second way to get fake blood is to simply buy pre-made fake blood. This I purchased from Studio Effects. The great thing about the first option is it is edible and it tastes like sugar, which is always awesome. The second option tastes like mint, but it does say do not ingest. Occasionally you may have need for some simple cuts, bruises, or scars. These can be done pretty simply and cheaply using common everyday makeup products. If you don't have your own makeup products, then ask your mom, your sister, your makeup wearing friends. I'm sure many of them have most of these items already. Various shades of lipstick, lip liner, eyeliner, eyeshadow, blush, and cheek coloring can be used to achieve these effects. I would highly recommend having a few options of reds, browns, blacks, blues, and purples. Yellows are good too, and tans. Just have the whole rainbow, like every color. When you need a quick solution to help make your scars look a bit more realistic or your cuts look like they've been starting to heal or maybe even a bit dried out, a little bit of Elmer's glue applied to the skin, spread around in a thin layer and allowed to dry gives it a pretty nice effect. Of course, with all these makeup products, the glue and the items that we'll be using in the next segment, make sure that you always do a small skin test on your forearm to make sure that you're not allergic to any of these items. And now to the main event, prosthetics. This is where you can get creative and really get the shots that you want. If you don't know what prosthetics are, they're basically fake pieces of skin, flesh, gashes, or other gory things, usually made out of latex or silicone. Today we're using prosthetics and makeup effects that I purchased from the Studio Effects website online. There are many other websites that sell similar products. Some of them can get pretty pricey, but the prosthetics that we're using today cost about $15 to $20 per application, which is relatively inexpensive for a prosthetic. Now, I have a very basic knowledge of makeup. I'm not in any way a professional at this, and I've never had any sort of formal makeup effects training, but with a little bit of time and practice, you can achieve some pretty good looking effects. For our first application, this specific prosthetic is a silicone prosthetic which already has adhesive on it. Following the instructions on the package, we then apply the prosthetic to our actor, make sure it sticks, wet the paper on the outside, and then carefully peel away the paper, revealing the prosthetic. Next, I use a little foundation to cover the edges of the prosthetic and to help blend it into our actor's skin. I use a handful of makeup products such as dark lipstick and various shades of eyeshadow on his face to help add some color for bruising, dried blood, soreness, and other things. As an optional step, I'm using some liquid latex to create a bit of a scarring effect on the border of the application. This will conceal the border by making it stick out even more. It will take a few minutes for the latex to dry, but then we can treat it as any other prosthetic and apply makeup on top. On his forehead, I applied a small gash. This was a much cheaper latex application, and it was also not self-adhesive. It's probably more of an experiment for me. On the other side of his face, I used some black face paint, some brownish red lipstick, and some other colors to make his face look a bit more bruised and scarred and then covered with dirt. The idea is that this monster doesn't let pain stop him and doesn't understand personal hygiene. For the cut on his forehead, I do add some of our fake blood, which makes the gash look a bit fresher. As it dries, it also adds a hint of realism. I do the same with one last silicone self-adhesive prosthetic on his neck, also using foundation to blend by covering the application and his skin, making them match, adding some colors to show bruising and soreness, which also helps it to blend, and a bit more liquid latex to make it look like the edges were meant to be there. And finally adding some fake blood to this one as well. Having very little experience in the world of effects makeup with no training, and given that I've only ever applied 2 prosthetics before this, and that was 3 years ago, my work wasn't that bad, but it also wasn't great. Hopefully I've showed you what you can do even with a little research and no experience. But we decided to bring in a pro. Enter Madison. Madison actually knows what she's doing, has done this before, and has lots of experience with prosthetics and complex special effects makeup. In fact, the stuff that she has done before looks really cool, so I've included a link to her Instagram in the description of this video. In addition to having the attention to detail that comes with her experience, she showed me some key tips that can help you as well. First, when blending the prosthetic, before applying any makeup, use some isopropyl alcohol to dissolve the edges of the prosthetic. This will help give you a much better blend and will hide the edges. I purchased these scar and flesh effects gels, but I felt like they weren't doing much to add to the effect. Madison showed me that using Vaseline can give a much more desirable effect, and it's much cheaper. In conclusion, I would highly recommend the self-adhesive silicone prosthetics from Studio Effects, which I've included a link for in the description of this video, and no, I do not get a commission. However, aside from also purchasing a bottle of adhesive remover, I don't think any other expensive special effects products from specialized websites are necessary, since you can accomplish most things with a little makeup, face paint, fake blood, Vaseline, and rubbing alcohol. That's it for part 1 of our 2-part Halloween special. Come back tomorrow for part 2. I hope that these tips will help you to pull off some great special effects and get the shots that you want. Thanks for watching Filmmaking for Noobs, and have a spooky Halloween. That's spooky spelt with 2 zeros, SP00KY, because that's the really cool kind of spooky. This episode was written and developed by Braden, who also operated the camera. Special thanks to our other camera op, Matthew, our actors Jacob and Isaac, and Alan and Denise for giving us this really cool location to film in.